feel like a racehorse today. I'm under starter's orders. First of all, thank you to Lady Susan for agreeing to swap today. I'm going overseas and Susan's just got back, so hopefully she's a little tired and I'm getting excited about going, so she very kindly agreed to swap sessions, so you'll get a really interesting talk from Susan before too long. Now, if you, I'm trying to weave a sergeant session in amongst my 5-minute talk, so there'll be a few little requests to put money into the plate, but look, to save a lot of time and energy, why don't you just float your $5 or your $10 or your $20 or your immunity card into, look, I was going to pick that one out, it's the wrong card. Put your immunity card into the plate now, and that'll save a lot of trouble as we go along. Now, what we're going to talk about today is Tawa, a youth Silicon Valley. If you haven't visited Tawa in the last 2 months, put some money in the plate, please. Tawa is a fantastic suburb to be part of. If you haven't visited Silicon Valley, please put some money in the plate. And if you're not a member of your local residents association, then also put some money in the plate. Is that enough? Is that good enough? Okay. The backstory. First of all, this started with Scope. We were looking for something to do in the education field, and I read an article in Rotary Down Under that the Newmarket Rotary Club was sponsoring 3D printers in schools. And so, in conjunction with Scope and the club, I managed to get a 3D printer into Lynda School. Some of you will have heard my story about that before. We had Sir Richard Taylor come along and present it. Fantastic afternoon at Lynda School. For those of you who can't tell me what Scope is, some money in the plate, you all ought to know what Scope is by now. If you haven't seen or physically used a 3D printer, put your hand up. Time you did, put money in the plate, please. If you haven't been to Weta Workshops, an absolute icon in Wellington, hand up if you haven't been to Weta Workshops. Money in the plate, there's no excuse for that. What decile rating is Lynda School? Pretty close. 4. Yep, it's a 4. Yeah, so it's these kids at Lynda School have got nothing. They've got no, many of them have got no cell phones. They've got no laptops or tablets or anything like that. So the 3D printer was absolutely revolutionary for them. And in conjunction with the 3D printer, we also, with the help of the club, put 20 Chromebooks, which are cut down laptops, into Lynda School, and I got an appreciation from the principal last week to say what a fantastic difference that's making to the children at Lynda School. Then having gone to Lynda School to see what the kids were doing with this printer, I was overwhelmed by the excitement that they displayed. They were just wrapped with what they'd been able to create. They had a whole box full of bits and pieces that they built on the 3D printer, and they were really excited. And it said to me, the problem is that when these kids leave Lynda School, if they go to Tawa Intermediate, because that's the intermediate school for Tawa, they would lose all the benefit of that 3D printer and the experience of using CAD program and so on. So I went round to the principal of Tawa Intermediate and said, how about a 3D printer? And he said, yes please, I'll have one of those. So about 3 weeks ago, again Sir Richard Taylor came out and we presented Tawa Intermediate with a 3D printer. Now, those of you who have visions at 2 o'clock in the morning, anybody have visions at 2 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, it's a great time, isn't it? Yeah, well, you're exempt from paying any more. Yeah. So, at 2 o'clock one morning, I had this vision for the next 5 years. So what I thought was, why can't we put if we've got a 3D printer in Lynda School and Tawa Intermediate, why can't we put a 3D printer in the other 5 primary schools in Tawa and in Tawa College? So I started that process, and that led me to thinking about actually the printer is simply a tool of leading edge technology. And so what I really want to do is to introduce the children of Tawa, the students of Tawa from year 1 to year 13 to leading edge technology. So I can lead on to robotics, animation, coding, virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and one I came across just recently, synthetic biology, blockchain. Some of you will be familiar with what blockchain is all about these days. I can introduce all of that stuff into the kids through the schooling system in Tawa. And the purpose behind doing that is to prepare these children for the work environment that they're going into. So my objective in a 5-year time frame is to have 100 to 150 children coming out of Tawa College who are work ready. And I've been talking to Richard Taylor about that, and he is becoming a very important component in this exercise of equipping Tawa to be a youth Silicon Valley. I've set up an education trust, and I'll show you the trustees in just half a minute. Part of the purpose behind that trust is to raise $1 million over the next 5 years to fund, to provide a capital fund, to provide a revenue stream so that we can buy the bits and pieces of equipment like the virtual reality face masks and so on and so forth to allow these children to develop. In conjunction with that, I decided that, and I've watched a few of these children as they've learned the power that they've got with this technology to develop stuff that we haven't even thought of. These kids are terribly agile, so I thought the next thing I need is an incubator. So I've set up an incubator, and the kids can bring their ideas along to the incubator. I've got a handful of professionals who are there to act as a dragon's den, if you will, to test these kids out and to test the marketability of their ideas. In conjunction with that, twice a year I'm holding teacher forums to train the teachers in these new technologies and to teach them how to teach the children these new technologies. As I discussed that with Brendan Henderson, the principal at Tawa Intermediate, he said, don't leave it to the teachers, they'll bureaucratise it. Make sure you get the community involved. So the community are being invited to participate in those training programs and also to provide them teaching at the schools. As I said, the target funding is $1 million over a 5-year period. Going to do that through sponsorship and crowdfunding. I worked out that if I got $20 from every home in Tawa each year for 5 years, that would give me $500,000. So I can see $1 million as a reasonable target to aim for. Getting down towards the bottom, in the end of July, beginning of August, what we're going to do is to hold an evening in Tawa entitled Parenting in the Internet of Everything. Because one of the things that we find is that the parents are really uncertain about what their kids are getting up to on the, when they get behind the screen. And so we're going to hold an evening introducing them to what parenting in the Internet of Everything looks like and what they can do to manage their children's use of technology. So my objective, equipping the youth of Tawa with the technologies of tomorrow. This morning I had a call from Sue Gooden, who's the principal at Redwood School, and she said, I've read in Kapimana about what you're doing with Lynda and Tawa Intermediate, when are you coming to see me? So she said, I want a 3D printer, please. I'm seeing her in July. Tomorrow morning I'm meeting with the principal and the IT people at Greenacres School. They've also read about it and said, when's our turn coming? So that's on the way. And Murray Lucas, the principal of Tawa College, has also said, please come and see me, I want to get in on this act as well. So gradually, my objective of getting all of the schools in Tawa covered looks like it's going to occur. That's a diagram that I use just to explain that we've got the Technology Trust, we've got the Incubator Trust, we've got the teacher and community training to make sure that we've got a good process for ensuring that the children get well taught and have got a facility to utilise the skills that they get out of the teaching that we give them. Who's involved? Well, here are some of the people that I am communicating with. Professor Gary Mersham at the Open Poly. He's right into startups and incubators, so he's really helpful. Professor Simon Fraser, the Dean of the Design School at Vic, has got a lot of ideas for me, and we've spent some good time together. As I mentioned, Sir Richard Taylor, he and I was out at Weta Workshops the other day just talking to him about the part that he might play in this process. The trustees are the 3 Northern Ward councillors, Jill Day, Malcolm Sparrow and Peter Gilbert. Richard Herbert, who's the chair of the Tawa Community Board, and the chair of the trust is Brendan Henderson, the principal at Tawa Intermediate. Barry Baker, a partner at Grant Thornton, is part of as a trustee on the incubator, as is Merrily Marshall. Merrily runs the Code Club, for those of you who know about the Code Club. Merrily runs the Code Club in Tawa. Rachel Tillman, a member of this club, is doing my communications plan for me. Fraser Carson, former member of this club, is doing the website for me, and Laura Summers, who's a member of the Tawa Rotary Club, is doing the social media campaign for me. So that's a little bit about the project that I've got on my plate for the next 5 years. I'm really looking forward to seeing the excitement on the faces of the kids as this project unfolds, and as we get to... Duncan, are you going to stop me? Is it time?
No, a comment to make as you finish. After talking to you, I went to Plimpton School.
Yes.
Plimpton has a technology centre. I said, would you like a printer? And they said, we've got one. It's a very old one. We want 6.
Great.
So I need to talk to you.
Talk to you afterwards. Okay. Okay. If you've got any money left in your pocket, please put it in the plate. But that's Tawa, a youth Silicon Valley. Thank you, President.
Tony, that's a very hard act to follow, and I think there was a connection in the forest at the heart of the city really got rolling under your term of presidency. Where's Tony gone? And what we're talking about here is another form of social enterprise, only one that's on the ground and dealing with old-fashioned things like spades and plants. And there's a figure that I want you to just bear in mind as the good news comes from Ed, that this is a venture that's done extraordinarily well in the first couple of years in a partnership with conservation volunteers, but they, like all other enterprises and non-profits, need to be looking ahead as to where the continuing funding is going to come. And we calculate the figure is in the order of about 300,000 in order to get to the 100,000 plants by our centenary. 4 years away, 4 planting sessions to go. Now, Ed's got some cheerful photographs to back that up.
Thanks for having me again. So we've had a very busy month or two of planting now. Here's a nice shot from the very first Rotary Community Saturday at the start of June. But before that, we had our first planting day of the season, which was the Corporate Tree Planting Challenge. I came and spoke to you guys about it just beforehand. So we had a really successful day. We had 5 teams of corporates from Spark, Landcorp, Contact Energy, WCC, and one which escapes my mind right now. But we had 41 people out, and they competed over the course of 2 hours, and we got almost 2,000 trees in the ground on that day. So that was really successful, and was followed by a nice barbecue and a prize giving, which I delivered the engraved version of this morning. The following day we had the first Rotary Day, so you can see up on the right hand side there, this is the site just above Hutt's Hospital in Newtown. That's the place we've been planting, and so far over the course of this day and then a few days with Wellington College and one with Queen Margaret's, we've had 3,500 trees in the ground already. The other side of the project, which has been bubbling away all summer, is the nursery construction. So I told you guys last time about the Bunnings Day. Bunnings donated all of the equipment for building the nursery, came out and helped pour concrete, put posts in the ground, and then earlier last week we had our very first seeds go into trays. So we've got a completed nursery, and we've now got seeds in the ground getting trees ready for the next few years. And that's to supplement the trees which are going to be planted by, donated by the council and Forest and Bird. So coming up, we've got this Saturday, another planting day. If any of you came and took part last year, it's in the same site as that, up on top of the hill. Meeting point's still going to be at Hutt's Hospital, and we're going to walk up and do infill planting on last year's site, and then again in August. And then moving forward, obviously, these are the numbers we're aiming for. So we've doing 5,000 trees this year, 10,000 next year, 12,000, 15 and 18 in the centenary. So we're getting into some serious numbers. But I think the fact we did almost 2,000 in 2 hours with those corporates shows planting is probably the smaller part of the work. Propagating all those trees in the nursery, all of the site maintenance afterwards, making sure that they grow into a healthy forest. And then working on some site creation, signage, seats and things is a major part of the project as well. Stuff that we're working on constantly throughout the next year.
I'll leave it there. Just flick it back.
Look at that.
And just to emphasise here that this project's now at the stage where it needs the networks of this club. And Ed and I will wait around outside immediately after and look to see who's going to say That's triggered a thought for me. I know this organisation which might be a potential corporate planter, sponsor. There's a set of publicity and promotion that's needed coming up soon in order to reach that ambitious target. We're well on the way, but this is the foundation period. That's the really serious stuff. We're going to make it by June 2021. And let's just do a poll of who's coming to Hewitt on this Saturday.
And please ask them to bring their morning tea.
Food. So Colleen is organising morning tea, which is great. So
Time, Richard?
9:30 through till 12 or so. So you can come for part. Doesn't need to be the whole morning. Thank you.
Very much, President Mark, members and guests. Just running through this relatively quickly because I know time's of interest, and this is the complete opposite project to Tony. So this is actually a project designed for youth in Wellington that actually we're going to take away from the internet technology and cell phones. So half of the room will relate very much to that, and the other half will think, what the hell are we doing? So what we're doing is a replica Orongoronga Hutt tramping hut. It's at Brookfield, which we'll talk about in just a second. It's basically 10 minutes from civilization, but when the kids arrive or the adults arrive with their pack on the back on a Friday night ready for a weekend to go tramping, it's an hour and a half to 2 hour walk. But in the morning they're only 10 minutes away from the facility, so they'll get a bit grumpy, but that's fine. It's fully self-contained. It's been funded so far, donations, including quite a large amount from the Bernie Knowles Family Trust, so a real link back to the club. It was built off-site, reassembled in the bush. It's a fantastic setting close to nature. It's called the Lock Hutt. Steve Locke was a very passionate scouter in Wellington. He was a long-term group leader of Kandala Scouts, went on to be involved in national scouting. He really was the typical good, keen bloke, and kept many, many youth of Wellington on the straight and narrow through the late 60s, 70s and 80s, and fondly remembered. He also at that time was involved with building a hut in the Orongoronga Valley, as many of you will have been to these huts in the Orongorongas. About 10 years ago it was demolished by DOC and they built a state-of-the-art lodge on the site. So a group of us got together and said, encouraged by one of the Knowles sons, to actually do something in his honour, and that was the start of the Lock Hutt. So good keen bloke, part of scouting. Sort of things he did was took us all to places like Port Lagar. This was a Christmas camp for scouts back in the 70s at Port Lagar, which is way up north. This was the sort of things that he did and kept many of us on the straight and narrow. I think there'd be a number of us that probably would have ended up quite different careers if we weren't involved with them. So I'm now going to hand over to Warwick, who's chair of the Brookfield Outdoor Education Centre.
Thanks, Grant. Just a matter of interest, how many people have been to Brookfield? So there's quite a few in the room who haven't. So Brookfield Scout Outdoor Education Centre is the top of Moores Valley Road in Wainuiomata. Thanks to a bequest and then a subsequent purchase of 550 acres for $1 a pounder an acre back in the early 1960s, Brookfield today is 230 hectares. We can sleep 130 plus in accommodation, and we can camp 800 individuals. It's probably the largest outdoor education centre for young people in the Wellington region, and we cater about 25% use for scouts, some for guiding, and about 50% of its use is for schools. So many of the young people in the whole region are getting their outdoor education centre through Brookfield. One of the things we've been lacking is using the majority of the property, which is regenerating bush, and in recent times we've been developing tramping tracks through it to give the kids or the scouts and young people that opportunity. And the Lock Hutt is part of that strategy, the strategy of giving them a base which they can begin to learn the etiquette of staying in a tramping hut with others. It won't be sole use to the one group that goes in there. If there are others around using it, then that's good. The ideal was that Whitireira Polytech were going to build the whole hut and dismantle it from their base in Pororua and would then helicopter it into the site. They did construct all the framing and it did get all helicoptered into site, but they got the hut up, but they got the roof on, but then they ran out of time to clad it. And so we've had a group now of volunteers who have been working every 4 weeks or so to put the cladding on the outside, to line it, to insulate it, and as of last weekend, our last weekend B, it is essentially all lined now, but there is a lot of trim work to do. The bunks need to go in, the kitchen needs to go in, the whole deck still needs to go on, so there's still a lot of work to be done. And Grant has suggested that this is where he might be able to encourage some of you to come on a working bee and get your hands dirty and contribute. It's a great opportunity, it's in a delightful setting, it's in a fantastic bush environment, and the birds are singing every time we're working out there. So it's the final push. We want to get it ready for this summer so the young people can use it. There's lots of tasks to be done by anybody. The more people we get, the better, and this final push is critical. We've been going for about 18 months now to get it this far. Once Whitty finished their time with us, we've made great progress, but there's still a little bit more to go. So thank you, Grant. Thank you for this opportunity.
Fellows, I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Lynda Carroll. Lynda Carroll is a close friend of mine. I'm looking forward to her being here, so I'll see even more of her, and she's going to make a fantastic contribution to the club. Lynda serves on boards and is the owner and principal of Carroll Consulting Limited. Carroll Consulting is a small agency established 20 years ago, working in strategy, performance, people and governance. She works in partnership with organisations to build high-performing culture that delivers long-term sustainable business success. Her work is primarily to assist organisations through change, either a start-up, merger, acquisition, operational change or change of culture. I've now worked with Lynda in several organisations, and I can attest to the amazing difference she makes in terms of successful culture change. Lynda's a member of the Senior Army Leadership Board with Suzanne and is a chartered member of IOD. She was the chair of NZIM Central and deputy chair of NZIM National when she facilitated the somewhat contentious merger of all of those into a single national organisation. Lynda is both a member and a chair of Nota Bene Choir, a chamber choir with which she's performed since 2005. And she's recently joined Doubtful Sounds that sings a cappella just for a little bit more stretch. Lynda's son Finn is currently studying at Vic, completing a BA in film and BCom in management. And Lynda's partner Oscar plays with Orchestra Wellington and designs and builds beautiful furniture and cabinetry. I'm really so pleased to be able to introduce Lynda.
Thank you. So I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Geoff. I'm not allowed to say that he's one of my oldest friends, he's a long-standing friend. Geoff grew up in Christchurch, and he attended Canterbury University, where he completed degrees in zoology and a Master of Science in Resource Management. Now that is also something I'm not going to say too much about. Geoff and I were at university together, and we have a mutual compact that I won't say too much about his university years if he doesn't say too much about mine. So Geoff came to Wellington to work for the Ministry of Works, Town and Country Planning Division. And sometime later, after some overseas travel, he moved on to the Treasury, later to DPMC, and Geoff went on to have a pretty stellar senior management career in the public service. He was a Deputy Secretary at Treasury. He moved on in 2001 to become the Chief Executive at the then Ministry for Economic Development, and then 7 years later moved on to his 8-year stint at the New Zealand Transport Agency. So I think, Geoff, that makes you one of the more experienced CEs around town. And now, Geoff has, although he stepped down from the NZTA, certainly hasn't retired. I looked at his CV and he looks busier than ever. So some of his current governance appointments, he's Director of Payments New Zealand Limited and Chair of their Audit and Risk Committee. He's Executive Chair of the New Zealand Festival. He's Commissioner on the Local Government Commission, an independent member of the Vulnerable Children's Board, and chair also of Audit and Risk there, and on a range of other boards. Geoff, you did say it was sort of semi-stepping back a bit, but I don't believe it for a minute. Now, Geoff has a range of interests and skills that I think are going to be really valuable to the club. So not only public sector management and governance and being, I think, pretty well connected in Wellington, but also driving value in projects large and small. And Geoff, I know you'll bring that energy and enthusiasm to your time here. Geoff was recognised as a companion of the Queen's Service Order just last year, very well deserved, and he holds a number of professional memberships, including the chartered member of the IOD. Now, in terms of the personal, Geoff is no less energetic in his time off. He and Claire have an avid range of outdoor interests: boating, tramping, mountain biking and skiing. I actually taught him to ski. Yes. And he has a very keen interest in the performing arts. Geoff and Claire have 3 adult children, and Geoff is looking forward to becoming a grandfather in the not too far away. So Geoff, great to have you on board.
Lynda and Geoff, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to our club after applications were approved by the board and then endorsed by the full membership. The Rotary Club of Wellington welcomes you because you have shown yourselves to be worthy representatives of your vocations, committed to the ideals of Rotary, and are clearly willing to do your part in putting these ideals into practice. Since Paul Harris convened the first meeting in Chicago in 1905, Rotary International has gained a reputation for service that's unmatched throughout the world. Through your induction today, you are now a full part of this international Rotary service team, and you are joining 1,207,913 Rotarians, give or take, in 35,399 clubs around the world. So, big time. Our principal motto is service above self, and the objective of our club and other Rotary clubs is to encourage and foster such service. All members are aware that everything we do is guided by our 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Your proposers have outlined the expectations we have on your attendance at our luncheons and your involvement in our extensive range of committees and trusts. If you can squeeze them in, Geoff, with all your other things you've got to do. We will do our best to ensure you enjoy your Rotary journey with our club, and we value your help in maintaining our robust standards our club has achieved. President Mark.
Thank you. To both of you, welcome to the Rotary Club of Wellington, New Zealand's oldest, and it's serving humanity from the heart of Wellington, which we've done since 1921. It's a great thing to do, and you can see from today individuals can make a difference. Lynda, here is your badge and your pin, and some light reading for you. And Geoff, same, is your pin that gets you access to 35,000 clubs, and the main badge and the reading. Good. Members, please join me.